Hi everyone, I hope you're really well. Welcome, or indeed welcome back to the channel. If you are new, don't forget to hit subscribe because today it is time for a foundation update video. So yes, today's video is all about foundation and it's an update in terms of how I've been getting on, specifically with Giorgio Armani's Power Fabric Foundation. I don't actually have the bottle here to show you because if you watched my first impressions video then you'll know that I actually had a sample of this foundation and I've actually used it all up. The last of which I've actually got on my face today and I've used every last single drop of it. I think I got about 4 or 5 uses out of it, so I feel like I've used it enough times now to know how I really truly feel about it. Like I mentioned in my last foundation update video, which was on the ordinary colours, these videos are just going to be standalone update videos as requested by you guys in terms of how I've been getting on with specific foundations. So if you want to see application and my first impressions and all that kind of stuff, then I will pop a card up here for you to check out the first video that I did on the Giorgio Armani Power Fabric Foundation, which will go a little bit more in detail. This video is just purely to give you an update about how I've been getting on testing it and what my final conclusion is. So in terms of what I'm going to be covering today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the product if you're not sure about it or you just can't remember from when we talked about it last time. I'm also going to put the swatches in as well, just so that you can see that comparison again, just to see it up and against some of my other foundations that I use. I'll talk you through testing and what I did to test this foundation out, and then it'll be time for my kind of final conclusion and what I made of it overall. So in terms of an overview, just to remind ourselves about this foundation in terms of the basics, Giorgio Armani Power Fabric will set you back £40 for 30ml and it has an SPF of 25 in it, which I think is really good. It comes in 15 shades if you're in the UK, but 20 shades if you're in the US. I don't know why there is such a difference between that. I don't think I've ever seen that before with any other manufacturers. Whether that is genuinely because we need 5 less shades in the UK, I'm really not sure. But that is something to bear in mind if this is something you'd like to try out. There is a bit of a difference in terms of whether you're in the UK or the US. It's supposed to be suitable for all skin types and it gives a matte or natural finish, but it also is supposed to be quite luminous as well, just to be slightly confusing. In terms of the claims about this foundation, it's supposed to give a lightweight second skin and no makeup feel. It weightlessly melts into the skin and it can also be used as a concealer. It gives long wear, full coverage, it targets the appearance of fatigue and it enhances facial features. So that's an overview of the foundation if you weren't familiar with it or you just wanted a quick recap and reminder. In terms of the shade that I picked up the shade 3.5 and I did a ton of research in terms of which shade to get and I felt really confident with the shade that I picked up. But if you saw my first impressions video, you'll know that it's actually really quite dark and it definitely doesn't really compare to a lot of the swatches that I found when I looked on Google. And as you'll see, compared to a lot of the other foundations that I reach for, it's definitely amongst the darkest of the foundations that I personally own. I can just about get away with it at the moment. It is a touch too dark, even though I have caught the sun a little bit recently. So the shades are definitely something to be wary of and you're going to want to do your research as best possible, especially considering there is that difference between the UK and the US. So if you're in the UK watching this and perhaps you've looked up swatches from an American beauty blogger, then that's something to be aware of because for some reason we just don't have the same shade range as the US. So just to quickly go through the claims that they make about this foundation and then I'll give you my thoughts on each of these claims in terms of how I've been testing the foundation and how I've been getting on. It's supposed to give you a lightweight second skin finish with like a no makeup feel, and to a degree I would agree with that. I've got it on my face today and like I said, I just wanted to use the rest of the sample up, so I really chucked quite a lot of product on my face today just to see how it felt and if I could get it up to that true full coverage that it advertises. And if I touch my face, it does actually feel quite comfortable. And I've been wearing this foundation for about 7 hours at the moment, so we're getting into the territory of quite a decent amount of wear time right now. So I would agree with the fact that it does feel very comfortable on the skin. It weightlessly melts into the skin. Again, I would go along with that. It does feel very weightless. It's very easy to blend on the skin. I don't particularly have a favourite application method with this one. I think any application method that you might like will work with this. It works fine with fingers, sponge, brush, whatever. I've personally used my Zoeva 104 today, and it was just really nice to buff it into the skin. So I would definitely say that upon initial application, it really does meld into the skin and just look like very natural coverage that does actually feel really quite comfortable. The next claim is that it can be used as a concealer, and I would probably agree with that one too. I will just take my glasses off. All I've used is the Power Fabric today. I haven't used any under eye concealer at all. I've not done any spot concealing at all. If you've been around my channel for a while, then you know that I've got an acne scar here, which is a little bit of a pain to try and cover, and it has covered that really nicely. And bearing in mind we're talking about 7-hour wear time right now, it is actually covering that area really nicely. That being said, this part of my face here, which is a bit drier, it definitely has started to wear off and become a little bit more patchy. So if you've got drier skin, that's definitely something to be aware of. In terms of using it under my eyes, I did actually pick some of the product up with a smaller concealer brush and actually really work it into my under eye area, and I'm really happy to report that it's barely creased at all, which is really quite unusual for me because everything creases on me. It doesn't give you the best, most flawless under eye coverage, but in the times that I've used this, it has given me that little bit extra coverage that's just made things look a little bit fresher, made me look a little bit more awake, and the fact that it doesn't crease either I think is pretty good really. The next claim is that it gives long wearing full coverage. Now the long wearing part of it I would probably agree with to an extent, because this part of my face, which is kind of the oiliest part, when you've got oily skin you'd perhaps expect a foundation to start to break up when your oils come out, and it doesn't really do that. It does definitely stay put and still provide really good coverage. I wouldn't necessarily agree that I have ever been able to get it up to full coverage. So if you are looking for a full coverage foundation, there are definitely better ones out there that can provide you with a much higher level of coverage than this foundation can. I would say that this foundation sits pretty solidly within a good medium level coverage. You can definitely still sheer it out to give you a really light level of coverage, and you can build it up a little bit to maybe give you a slightly higher level of coverage, but every time that I've tried this, I have still had stuff showing through. So I cannot agree with them saying that this is a full coverage foundation. It may be a more full coverage foundation compared to the other ones that they've come out with, because I believe that's the case, but when you compare it to the rest of what's out there on the market, it's definitely not full coverage. Targets the appearance of fatigue. I am not entirely sure what they mean by that. The only thing that I can maybe kind of relate that to is the fact that I've had this on my face for 7 hours now and it isn't looking tired. The coverage is still looking really nice. It hasn't really degraded at all, apart from in this area, which is that little bit drier. And I think because of the fact that it's got that level of luminosity in there, it gives your skin this kind of glow that probably does make your skin look a little bit fresher and less fatigued. So I could kind of go along with that, provided my interpretation of what they mean is right. And then the last claim, which really sticks out to me, is the fact that it's supposed to enhance your facial features. Well, I don't know, again, exactly what they mean by that, but at the end of the day, when you're picking up a foundation and putting it on your face, aren't we all kind of having that same hope that it's going to enhance our face? Otherwise, why would we even be picking it up? So I guess I agree with that one. I find it a bit of a strange claim for them to have put in there because it does seem to be quite a basic expectation to have from a foundation, but there you go. So in terms of how I got on with actually testing this foundation, as you probably know, I do have particularly oily skin. It is very problematic. I can fall in love with foundations and then it can all unravel when it comes to oiliness. And generally speaking, I can usually resolve oiliness with one of a few different products, whether it be picking out a mattifying moisturiser or a primer or a setting powder. I can use some kind of combination of things to sort the situation out. However, sometimes, despite my best efforts, it just does not happen for me. And unfortunately, this is another foundation that is just not compatible with my oily skin. And I've actually read a few reviews of people agreeing with this. Even though this is supposed to be a matte, sort of skin-like finish foundation, that's supposed to be good for all skin types, including oily skin. So it's another disappointment in that respect, because when this foundation initially goes on, I actually really like the look of it. It does look really nice on the skin. It feels very comfortable, it looks very natural, it applies to the skin really quite nicely and quickly. The only drawback to that is the fact that if you are wanting something where you're getting a fairly decent level of coverage, then it does seem to take a little while to really build it up. So again, that's something to be aware of. If you're wanting something a bit more than medium coverage, then it is going to take a while to build up, because this morning when I was putting this on, it felt like it took forever. Maybe a sponge would have been quicker to build it up, I'm not sure. I was just using my brush to really quickly blend it in, so it does take a little while to build up, but straight away upon initial application I notice that I'm shiny here and here as well, and that is regardless of what I've put underneath it. So obviously the luminescent quality, whatever it is that's in this foundation, is working really well. I have tested it out with some primers, and the three in particular that I've got pictures of here are Hourglass's Mineral Veil, Hylamide Matte 12 and Guerlain Meteorite Perles, just because I felt, why not? Let's just see if that works. And unfortunately, none of them did. I'm still super shiny and greasy looking. It's probably not going to pick up very well on camera, but I've done some cutaways, but I am super shiny right now. There's a seriously shiny situation going on, and that happened probably only an hour after application, which is really quite shocking really, because even if you were going to a lovely event or something, I just don't think this would hold out if you had oily skin like I do. And even powdering does not seem to make a difference. The luminescent quality of this foundation just pushes through it. So you can probably guess what my final conclusion of this foundation is, and I'm really disappointed by it. I was so excited to try this foundation out. Everyone seemed to rave about it, but now that I think about it, most of the beauty bloggers that I saw rave about it either had normal or dry skin. So again, it's another one of those products that I think if you had normal or dry skin, this would actually be a really lovely option if you felt like splurging £40 on a foundation, but it does give you a really nice natural looking level of coverage. That being said, I actually think this foundation is very similar to the ordinary coverage foundation. So there's a huge price difference there in terms of whether you want to spend sort of £40 or nearly £6. I'll leave that up to you to decide, but they are actually quite similar in my opinion in terms of how they go on the skin, the level of coverage they provide, and what they do to my skin after an hour or so. So unfortunately, I won't be picking this foundation up in the full size, and it's not one that I could recommend for oily skin unless you really like the very glowy, luminous, shiny beacon look on your skin, but I certainly do not. So that's it for this foundation update video. I really hope that you enjoyed it and this new format that I'm doing at the moment, sort of taking one foundation at a time and really breaking it down and testing it and giving you my results. So if you did like this video, I would really appreciate a thumbs up down below, because it does really help support my channel. And if you are new and would like to subscribe to see more content like this from me in the future, I will pop a button just here so you can click it and get notified of new content as and when it gets uploaded. And if you've not seen my last video, I will pop a link to that one just up here so you can click it and check that one out too. Anyway, I hope you're all really well, and I will see you again soon. Bye!